Okay. So I don't remember what made me decide to do these together. They are okay. So they might. Okay, they are very similar. Like a lot more similar than you probably think about. Like I didn't really think of like when I first saw The Town in theaters, I didn't even think about Heat. But then of course, apparently Affleck was strongly inspired by Heat.
Okay.
When he made this, and I guess there's actually there's even some things in there that are direct lifts. But for some reason, Heat is mainly known for being the Dark Knight's inspiration.
Yeah, exactly. The opening scene of The Dark Knight. But
of course, you have not only that, but the overhead city shots too are directly out. Like there's the scene in The Dark Knight right before the armored car chase. Like when we have the overhead shot of the city and we see the armored car and all the cops behind it and the helicopter, and we hear the Joker score kick in. That entire shot, score included, I believe is like right out of Heat. just copy and paste.
Fair enough.
Like I said, that's very specific because that's just one shot, but yes, clearly, but you can't say stealing because no one came out and said, Heat was really inspirational. So, I suppose I could have compared them, but
been interesting.
Obviously, The Town was also heavily influenced by it, and they both involve the main story being the cop versus the criminal, but it also their love stories.
Yep.
So, but we'll get into that. We'll just start. We'll just go on right now. Get right into categories. We're going to start off with the robbers. Neil McCauley and Doug McRae, which are De Niro and Affleck. We'll talk about... Okay. What gives Doug the edge is he's got a lot of backstory. We know a lot about his childhood. We know almost everything about his dad. We know everything about his mom.
Mm-hmm.
We know how he grew up. We know that his dad worked for Pete Postlethwaite and got put in prison. And we know that his mom was the scene with Postlethwaite. We think that she just ran away, but then Postlethwaite tells us that she was like a junkie that overdosed. And I haven't seen The Town for a while. I think he implies that she killed herself.
I believe so.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to really go on memory. I haven't watched either one of these in so long. I gotta go right on memory, and I gotta...
It's better you doing this than I.
Dig deep for them. I figured I wanted to have time to rewatch them, but Heat is so fucking long. Heat is 3 hours long.
And apparently it was X-Men time, so to get prepared for the Wolverine.
But I didn't manage to watch these both again, so, but I've seen them enough in my life to where, even if The Town's barely, almost 3 years old, but I've seen it many times.
Yep.
And of course Heat, everybody's seen it many times.
Yeah.
Anyway, back on topic. And Doug McRae is kind of, Neil McCauley's much more of a villain than Doug is. I mean, he's not the great thing about these movies is it's your decision who is the villain and who is the good guy.
Yeah.
Like, if you're on Affleck's side, you can see John Hamm as a villain, or if you're on John Hamm's side, Affleck is a villain. And the same thing with Pacino and De Niro. But, despite being, like I said, this also comes down to performance. And I know it's kind of, even with, what he's doing, I mean, they both have opposite career paths.
Yeah.
You have Affleck, who did a bunch of really bad shit, mostly for money, and now he's into prestige stuff. And you have De Niro, who did a bunch of prestige stuff, and now he's doing random shit for money. But
He's
specifically here. Okay. Doug is more portrayed as a good guy.
Yeah.
Because he wants out.
Yeah, of course.
Macaulay does want out, but we don't get to that point till like the very end, when it's too late.
You have to build up to it.
And he ends up falling in love with a former hostage.
Mm.
Macaulay falls in love with a girl he meets, like a normal person. So, it's... Their individual love stories, which stem off of them, come from... Macaulay's feels more believable, I guess.
Okay.
And Doug's more movie-like. Now let's talk about Macaulay as a character. He's very human. Like, when he has the scenes with Amy Brown where they're his love story, he's like... He tells her that he's in sales. Because that's the go-to thing you tell somebody when you're lying.
Yep.
And they have a legitimate, real love story. But, then there's the scene where, like, before he meets her, like, right before he meets her, there's a scene where he goes hardcore, where Wayne Grove fucked up the first heist by killing the hostages, or the witnesses. And De Niro just meets up with him at a diner, and he's being very calm. And he just grabs Wayne Grove by the head and slams his head down on the cafe table. And then, they're like, okay, that's it. Wayne Grove assumes that's his punishment. He gets his face slammed on the table.
Nope.
And they're like, okay, let's go. Let's go outside now. They go out to the parking lot. And I think it's Trejo. Danny Trejo's playing a guy named Trejo.
That's great.
And he opens the trunk, and the trunk is covered in plastic. And De Niro punches Wayne Grove in the stomach and goes and throws him down to the ground. He goes to shoot him in the head. But of course, a cop drives by, so they have to, act like they're not doing anything. And then by the time the cop leaves, Wayne Grove has gone away. Mm-hmm. That comes back at the end. Actually, it comes back in the middle, and then it resolved at the end. But it's a big thing at the end. There's just... Doug McRae is a good character. Yeah. I should start off by saying that both of these movies stem from something else. The Town came from the book Prince of Thieves by Chuck Hogan, which I read, and it's awesome. And Heat's technically not really adapted too much, because it's still Michael Mann. There is a made-for-TV movie called LA Takedown that was made to be a pilot, but it didn't pick up. So Mann just made it a TV movie. And then Heat's a remake of that TV movie that he made himself.
Oh, okay.
The thing is LA Takedown is a half the length of Heat. It's only an hour and a half. They managed to... But I'm sure... I haven't seen it, but I'm sure a lot of the characters in Heat aren't in it. Just the main characters. So yes, between Doug and Macaulay, acting-wise, I don't think Ben Affleck is the bad actor everybody makes him out to be.
No.
And I would say The Town is probably one of his better performances.
Agreed.
But, I don't know if I'm just being sentimental or not, but performance-wise, a lot of people say Jackie Brown, which I like De Niro and Jackie Brown, but I think his last great performance was this one. So, let's not forget. Well, there's always Everybody's Fine. That's the go-to.
Everybody's Fine is an incredible performance that no one saw.
But his last really great De Niro performance was this. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I don't know if I'm just sentimental, but it's a clear-cut case of De Niro takes this one. So, they're both good characters, but Macaulay has so many layers, and he's really unpredictable. And you don't know exactly what's going through his head or how he handles things. And he's like really... There's that great scene where... This is actually more of a Pacino moment, so... I'll save this for Pacino, which is next right now. we have the cops, which are Vincent Hanna and Adam Frawley.
Mm.
Pacino and Jon Hamm. Okay. Let me just say, Jon Hamm is badass in the town.
No lie.
Like, he's the, I always love the line. It's kind of corny and cop-like, but it's a great line for the movie. Because it's one of those cop lines that all cops should be quoting. It's when he's, it's after they've done the nun heist, and he says that these guys aren't fucking around, and then he gives, like, a little pep talk, and his finishing line is, this not fucking around thing's about to go both ways. And that's when they go and they fucking arrest Affleck immediately.
Yeah.
Jon Hamm don't fuck around. Whether he's at an ad agency or he's the fucking cops. The FBI, to be exact. I couldn't remember. It's planted right here on his chest on the picture on the back. Pacino. Okay. This opinion might be a little controversial. I don't know. Because I think this is a lot of people embrace this, and normally I embrace it too, but I don't think it works totally here, specifically. In Heat, Al Pacino is so Pacino-y.
Pacino-y?
Like, anytime... I know he yells in a lot of movies, but something tells me whenever somebody impersonates Pacino yelling, they're specifically doing Vincent Hanna. There's a particular scene where he's interrogating Hank Azaria. Hank Azaria has just had an affair with Ashley Judd, who is Kilmer's husband.
Okay.
And Azaria immediately regrets it because he gets him caught up in all this, and he's like, why did I ever get caught up with that fucking bitch? And Pacino's response is, because she's got a great ass! And you've got your head all the way up it! There's a lot of that.
Or Son of a Woman. That's another thing that people impersonate a lot. Hoo-ah.
There's a lot of that, yeah. Yeah, that was the story behind that. I'm getting sidetracked, of course, but while we're on the subject, when Elaine tells the soup Nazi, you look like Al Pacino, Jerry told her to say hoo-ah after she said it. For Son of a Woman, and she said she hadn't seen Son of a Woman, so she had no idea why she was saying hoo-ah.
That's great.
Well, regardless, like I said, the great thing about Heat that, okay, the characters in the town are smart, but Heat really goes out of its way to tell us. There's a really, really great scene where, Macaulay and his crew figure out that they're being watched by Hanna and the cops.
Mm-hmm.
So they go to this random-ass place just out in the open, and they're just kind of just walking around, and they're out just, like, pointing in directions and just saying, you know, random shit. And they leave. And then Hanna and the cops come out because they've been watching, and they're like, okay, he was pointing in that direction, so that must mean something's going on over there. And they were pointing over here and talking here, so there must be something there. And then Hanna just kind of turns around for a little bit and kind of assesses the situation, and he's like, I know what they're watching. And they're like, what? And they're like, he's watching us. And he looks up, and De Niro set this whole thing up just so the cops were out there, and he's been up here taking pictures of all of them.
It's great.
So, that's what's great. That's the thing is, the cop versus robber battle in the town is more grudge-like.
Mm.
And in the Heat,
Good
Heat,
Lord, don't do that, please.
In Heat, it's that, well, you know, the town. And normally I would
That's the thing I've done all the time.
Normally I would not mistake movie titles, but because I'm saying the town right before it.
Yep, I've done that a couple of times.
It's just, you get in that rhythm of those.
Yep.
Okay, the town is more of a grudge-like cops versus robbers.
Yep.
And Heat is more, I almost did it again.
Yep.
Heat is more of a battle of wits between cops and robbers.
Of course.
Though I do love the scene where Jon Hamm interrogates Affleck.
Yeah.
That scene alone makes me say, I think I'll give that point to Jon Hamm.
Wow.
Because I do like, that's the thing though, is, because you know, Frawley's a really badass character, and he's like the, as he literally says, the not fucking around cop. And Pacino's got a great character, and he does the yelling thing a lot, and he's got a great scene with Tone Loc, when Tone Loc's playing his informant. Like, don't waste my motherfucking time! I just don't feel like the Pacino-ness of that was really working for this, because the whole point of this character is he seems very cool. Like, when he's talking about... There's a scene with his wife, where his wife's complaining, that's... You kind of got that old thing, where the wife's complaining that he's married to the job and not to her, and stuff like that. There's a scene... He goes back to the restaurant after he's looked at this dead girl, and he's talking to her. He's very, very calm, and he's like, she says, you don't let me in, we don't talk about each other's day, and he's like, well, if you want to talk about my day, you do realize that'd be me saying, hey, honey, I'm home. Today, I investigated a crack addict who put his baby in the microwave because it was crying too loud. How was your day? He's very calm, and he describes why he needs the job and how he does it and what, keeps him going. Mm-hmm. So these Pacino-y outbursts just seem really out of place when they happen. The scene with poor Xander Berkeley, the guy that played John Connor's foster dad in Terminator 2, and he's Stewart in Taken, the Stewart that he doesn't have time to dick measure with.
Okay.
Pacino's wife is cheating on him with Xander Berkeley, but he had no idea she was married. He's just sitting on the couch watching TV, and he's like, you can, bang my wife in the bedroom. You can slouch around on her couch in her house, but you do not get to watch my fucking television set! And he rips the TV out of the wall and takes off with it.
That's awesome.
And later on, throws it out of his car onto the street where it busts all over the place, and he just drives off and leaves it there.
So much for your TV.
But yeah, I don't know. That stuff just seems... It seems like two different characters, and that makes it a little uneven. And that's why I like Frawley. Another thing about Frawley is, there is a director's cut of the town. It's like 2.5 hours, but I haven't seen it. Supposedly it puts in all the stuff that was in the book. Mm-hmm. And what was interesting about the book that the movie doesn't cover, which I suppose the movie did good on this, because it might have looked too much like a Heat clone if it delved into this and made itself too long.
Okay.
But the thing is the love stories between Affleck and Rebecca Hall. But in the book, it's a love triangle, and Frawley is also in love with Rebecca Hall's character.
Hmm.
So, it works for the book, but I think it might have overcrowded the movie. And like I said, if you introduce too many, I spit really far just now.
Yeah.
If you introduce too many stories in one heist movie, you look too much like Heat. If you're already taking inspiration from it. Okay. So next we'll go on to supporting characters.
Ooh.
I gotta really dig in my memory to do this for Heat, because good lord, every actor who has ever acted in anything ever is in Heat.
True.
Okay, I'll start with the town, that's easier. I have more time to register the names in Heat. Okay, I already went through Affleck, John Hamm, and Rebecca Hall.
Mm-hmm.
The supporting characters in the town would be Jeremy Renner, you have Blake Lively, you have the other two guys in their group, Slane and that other guy. There's, is that it? Oh, you have the other cop played by Titus Welliver. Yeah, not near as many supporting characters in town, but nevertheless, these characters make most of what they do. Like, there are people that, pretty much everybody hates Blake Lively. As an actress. But there was a general consensus, for the most part, that she impressed people in the town. And of course you have Jeremy Renner got a much-deserved Oscar nomination. People say it was just him writing the Hurt Locker Love from the year before, but I totally think he got the town nomination on the merits of his performance, despite what anybody says. What Jeremy Renner does with his eyes in this movie is more than most people do at all. And I suppose if you want to, I tend to compare supporting characters. So I guess there's like Chris Cooper and People Wait, shit, yeah. Okay, let me. Yes, okay. I'll do on that for a minute. Chris Cooper is great, but he only gets one scene. Pete Postlethwaite has 3 scenes, kinda. He got a BAFTA nomination, but it was after he died.
Mm-hmm.
So people thought it was just, oh shit, Pete Postlethwaite died, let's, throw him something. No, I think he earned that BAFTA nomination, because that one scene where he's just ripping the leaves off the roses.
No lie.
And he's talking to Affleck about how his mom really died. And he talks about, the clipped your nuts thing comes up, which comes back later. And the whole, your mother was a messed up doper who's never coming home. And he's like, if there's a heaven, son, your mother ain't in it. He's got that Irish accent that's, like, really just...
It's so awesome.
But the thing is he was really far into his cancer when they filmed, so he's really thin. But what he lacks in physicality, his delivery makes up for. Just in above and beyond. Yeah, as far as comparing characters, like, a lot of the times when I do this, the supporting characters compare to others. You have Rebecca Hall and you have Amy Brenneman, but Rebecca Hall is I consider Rebecca Hall a leading character in the town. And Amy Brenneman's barely in the movie, but when she's there, she's dramatic. She might be a little melodramatic, but nevertheless, I'd say Jem is probably a mixture of Chris and Sharito, if I had to guess. In the book, he's more like Waingro, but the movie really toned him down to make him more human. But in the book, he's totally psychotic. Like in the at the end of the movie, he jumps out with a gun and gets himself shot by the cops. Mm-hmm. In the book, he fucking blows himself up and takes cops with him. There's this weird-ass subplot in the book that the movie didn't touch on. And it would have been weird if they did, and kind of pointless, but... the thing is Jem is really wound up. And the book goes into it. The book says, the reason Jem is so wound up is because he hasn't jacked off in a year. And there's a scene in the book where he does a lot of drugs and jerks off, and then goes out and does shit. Like he puts on the mask from the first robbery and like invades. I forgot her name. Rebecca Hall's character. I forget her name. He invades her house. But it's they really toned him down and made him more, relatable in the movie, which was probably the smart move, because that scene. The scene that sealed his Oscar nomination, when they're at the cemetery, and Affleck's talking about leaving, and Jem wants him to stay, and that look in Jeremy Renner's eyes is just killer. Having said that, I'll do my best to tackle the Heat cast. What's her name?
I've got all the cast of Heat right here.
Okay.
I'll tell you her name. Give me a second.
I will start with... Kilmer doesn't get to do much, surprisingly. I think what happened... It's not that he's bad in it, it's just that his character is just kind of there. He's a driving force for a lot of things without being there. Because his character brings Ashley Judd into the story. And Ashley Judd brings in a whole new thing. Like
Claire.
the whole... Yeah.
Sorry.
Because she cheats on Kilmer with Hank Azaria, and Macaulay finds out and basically threatens her and Hank Azaria. And then Hank Azaria is actually used for information by the cops, and it's just... All this started because of Kilmer, but Kilmer's not really in the movie much. He's mostly there to fire guns and do things to set up the...
Right on the box.
Wait, see, here's the thing. He already had Top Gun in the doors.
Yeah.
He was already well established. But I'm going to guess the deal with him getting a credit with Pacino and De Niro has to do with this being released the same year as Batman Forever.
Probably.
If I had to guess. And yes, he has that long hair pulled back in the ponytail through most of the movie. And then his very last scene when he's escaping the cops and changing his identity, he looks more like Bruce Wayne.
That's great.
I'm going to assume this was shot first.
Probably.
Okay, you go on. That's what's great about the supporting characters is you have supporting characters. Those supporting characters have backstories that bring in more supporting characters, and the supporting characters that are part of other characters' backstories have backstories of their own. And it's just this great web that all comes to just... It never loses itself either. It always comes back to the one place. The next person in the lineup would probably be... There's the women, which I went over in talking about the other guys, but there's Jon Voight, who is apparently Eddie Bunker, who played Mr. Blue in Reservoir Dogs, was a career criminal before he, acted in Reservoir Dogs and shit. Apparently Jon Voight's character is based on him. And he's there to provide information, but, he's Jon Voight. He does what he has to do when he's not, scraping the bottom of the barrel with movies like Baby Geniuses do. Or Bratz, I think he was in. He won a goddamn Oscar, and but whatever. Okay. And he spawned an Oscar-winning actress.
Yeah.
So what but regardless, okay. Oh my God, there's so many.
I've got all of them right here.
We have Tom Noonan is the guy that sets up the job. He only has one scene, but he's always great. Even if he just has one scene, he's the guy that talks about the job. He has like a beard and he's in a wheelchair. It's a weird setup for him to just have one scene, but he's the one that sets up the bank heist.
He's the Ripper.
Yeah.
That's how I know Noonan.
Then we have
God, such a long gas list.
Okay, yeah, I gotta think. There's Sizemore. Sizemore is a big deal.
Yeah.
Sizemore is basically okay, you have the head of command in Macaulay's group. There's Macaulay. Right under him would be Sharito, who is Sizemore.
Yep.
He's the reason they get found out. He's the he was the guy that knew Tone Loc, and Tone Loc ratted him out to Hannah to get what he wants. And he's like this, like I said, he's kind of like Jim, where he's not... He can lead a normal life, but on the job, he can be psychotic. Like, there's the great scene at the end of the big heist, where he's running away from Hannah, and what he does to save himself is picks up a young girl, like a 5-year-old, and runs off with her, so nobody will shoot at him. And of course, very, very skillfully, just as he turns just the right way, still holding the child, Hannah manages to shoot him right through the head. And then when he falls over, his body cushions the child's fall. We don't get too much into him besides the stuff towards the beginning. They all have that dinner scene together. Then there's the William Fichtner character. He's a big deal.
Speaking of the Dark Knight.
Yeah. He and his bodyguard Henry Rollins.
That's great.
Henry Rollins does everything for him. He's like his secretary, he's like his bodyguard, he's like his henchman, he's like his right-hand man. He's pretty much always there. But the interesting thing with Fichtner is, and you think it's going to kind of be pointless, but then, like I said, everything in this movie comes back and has a purpose. That's what's great about it. And that's what justifies the length, too. It doesn't feel long at all. We'll get to that. Fichtner is somebody that they, ripped off. And now he wants revenge. So he's basically setting them up. He's supposedly calling them in for a job, but he's actually setting them up to be killed.
Mm.
But then that goes wrong, and it's a small shootout at a drive-in, of all things, which is an interesting thing.
Very true.
And then, De Niro calls him and he says, I'm talking to an empty phone because there's a dead man on the other end of this line. So Fichtner locks himself in his office for 3 days and doesn't go anywhere. He's actually, grown the beard and everything.
Nice.
Then there's Dennis Haysbert.
Yep.
who gets his own story. He's this, he's just come out of prison, and he's on parole, and he gets a job as a cook at a diner. And Bud Cort, who is Harold and Maude, you'll know him. He's John Doe Jersey in Dogma.
Yes. Oh, that name sounded familiar.
He has a cameo. He's uncredited. He's the manager, and he's like giving Dennis Haysbert a hard time because he's a convict. But then De Niro comes in and has him be the getaway driver for the heist, and so he like throws Bud Cort on the ground and quits his job and goes out to be the getaway driver because Trejo ran off. We don't know what happened. We do find out, but what happened was, okay, we'll get to that in a second. Let me finish what I was talking about with Dennis Haysbert. And he's got a love story himself. He's got, like, I guess it's his wife, I think, or his girlfriend. It's one of the two. But I always use this as a joke. This is a running joke with me, and not many people get it because they don't remember, or they don't recognize him. Obviously, Dennis Haysbert is the spokesman for Allstate.
Yes.
You know, the car insurance.
Yeah.
How appropriate he's the getaway driver in Heat, and he dies behind the wheel of a car. It's like he's promoting it as a public service announcement.
He's Pedro Serrano too. That's how I know him. So.
Okay, one of the most famous characters of the movie is Waingro, Kevin Gage, who was Kelly Preston's first husband. That's just a random factoid about him.
Yes.
He is this psychotic character that just there's just really weird scenes. We think he's gone after he's escaped De Niro, but then he comes back into the story. And he actually becomes really important. He's with this girl who is like 15, and he's just banged her. And she's a prostitute. He's basically paid her to say, thank you for the monster fuck of my young wife. And then he beats her to death. And then he goes out. Literally, he goes out for a beer right after he beats her to death because he's going to rat out De Niro to William Fichtner.
Okay.
So William Fichtner can have him killed. Well, that causes a clusterfuck. And it gets Trejo killed. Like, he tortures and kills... Waingro tortures and kills Trejo. That's why Trejo didn't show up for the heist. And then Waingro ends up costing Macaulay. Fatally. Because you have the Van Zandt thing, which is William Fichtner. And you have the beginning where he escaped De Niro's clutches. And you have the end where Jon Voight calls him up and says, hey, I just thought you might want to know, in case you want to know, Waingro is under this name at this hotel in this room. And De Niro's like, you know what, I don't care. Because he and Amy Brenneman are getting ready to leave town forever. And he's going to quit crime and he's going to be with her. At the very last minute, he cannot let the Waingro thing go. And he says, hold on, I got to do something real quick before we leave. And he pulls off. And he goes and he kills Waingro. And that's where Hannah catches him. And that's where the ending happens. We'll get to the ending in a minute. And that character is so popular that I can't remember what it was for. Maybe something about taxes. But Kevin Gage actually spent about 2 years in jail, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And while he was in prison, everybody, including the prison guards, called him Waingro.
That's awesome.
I think it was 2 years. It was like a little under 2 years, I think. Who else?
You've got four people that you've not mentioned yet. One you kind of talked about, Xander Berkeley.
Let's see.
Then there's...
Natalie Portman.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of.
Yeah, she has her whole separate thing. That's kind of to bring Hannah over to the, I don't know, her story. I mean, I say all the stories have a point and they all come back. If there's one story in this movie that could have been cut that doesn't really have a point, it's Natalie Portman's. She is the daughter of his wife. This is Pacino's third marriage, and she's his daughter, and she's like going through depression, and her dad neglects her and says he's gonna show up, and he doesn't. And at the end of the movie, she tries to kill herself in his hotel room.
Okay.
So he's the one that finds her. So he ends up saving her by making tourniquets and running her to the hospital. And I guess it's the way to show that he's gonna, start caring more about family and stuff like that. I guess, like, it's the one time he ignores his pager when they're in the waiting room. Of course, it just so happens when he finally decides to leave, he runs right into Macaulay, so I guess that kind of brings him there.
There's Jeremy Piven.
Yeah, Jeremy Piven has one scene. He's the doctor who is like after the heist, obviously they need to keep a low profile, so Jeremy Piven is the doctor that they pay off to. Kilmer gets shot in the shoulder and pretty much gets taken out of the movie. He has only one more scene after that, and Piven's the one that they pay to in stacks of money to take the bullet out of Kilmer and heal him without the cops or anybody else ever knowing. And who's the last person I'm forgetting?
The final name is Ted Levine.
Yeah, Ted Levine and Michael D. Williamson. Bubba from Forrest Gump.
You already brought up Michael D. Williamson a little bit ago, but you didn't really...
Ted Levine and Michael D. Williamson are the cops that work with Pacino.
Yes.
That's their function. But there is a really nice scene between Michael D. Williamson and Ashley Judd. There's, the scene where all the cops are in Ashley Judd's house and they're waiting for Kilmer to come so they can arrest him.
Nice.
But even though she was cheating on him with Hank Azaria, she still loves him. So Michael D. Williamson's the one that tells her, you can either, rat him out and get off free, but if you let him go purposefully, you're going to be locked up like him, and your baby's going to be put in foster homes and juvenile centers and all of that.
Wow.
So she goes outside, and Kilmer pulls up, and she kind of gives him a little signal that says, get out of here. So he leaves, and she's probably never going to see him again. And she has to watch him drive off. And then, of course, Michael T. Williamson has the cops stop him before he drives off. But, of course, by then, he's changed his identity and all his other stuff. And that's the last time we see Kilmer.
Nice.
Yeah.
16 hours later, the supporting characters is over. We're on the third category now?
So, supporting characters, I think I answered my own question. The town has great supporting characters, and they're all well-rounded, except for the other the other guys on the team we don't really hear much about. He manages to juggle all these actors and all these characters, and they all have some kind of purpose that makes sense.
Okay.
So, clearly, Heat has supporting characters.
Okay.
How far in are we now? 37 minutes.
I think this is the third category, isn't it? That we just finished?
Fourth. Yeah, we're going on to the fourth now, which is the best heist scene.
There you go. There's my cryptic comment, folks. Heist was the clue for this versus.
Both movies have multiple heists, but I chose their most famous ones.
Okay.
We have the bank heist in the middle of Heat, the big one, the big 10-minute shootout that everybody talks about, versus the nun heist. I should point out that you could tell that particular scene inspired him because there is a scene when the nun heist first starts, like when they first get stopped by the cops. Renner's instinct is to shoot at them through the windshield.
Yeah.
From inside. In Heat, you see De Niro do that twice. One of which is in this heist. It's right after Dennis Haysbert gets killed, actually. Because Dennis Haysbert's sitting right here, and De Niro's in the passenger seat. Dennis Haysbert gets blown away at the wheel.
Good God.
But yeah, what's great is what makes these scenes great and what makes it hard to decide is there are two different kinds of heist scenes.
Okay.
Heat turns the heist into a big shootout. The town turns the heist into a chase scene. And it's a really, really well done chase scene. Like, it's really well crafted the way Affleck did it. And this big-ass shootout, my God. It's like whenever you hear about even if you haven't seen the movie, or haven't seen it much, when you hear people discussing shootouts, Heat is almost always brought up.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's a little exaggerated. Some people think the scene's like half an hour long. And most people associate me with it. No, it's only 10 minutes long, but regardless, it's still a pretty epic scene. Yeah, I love the shot in the town where it's really fucking creepy. I mean, it's creepy, but in the movie it's kind of played for laughs. It's when they're on their way to the heist, and they've just put the nun masks on, and that kid sees them through the window when they drive by. And it's both, holy shit, that's kind of creepy, and it's hilarious, because that, God knows what that kid's thinking.
Yeah, no lie.
Both scenes are really thrilling in their own ways. Like I said, one's a shootout, one's a chase scene. So, yeah. I'm gonna do it.
Okay.
I can't decide. Both their heists are equally thrilling for different reasons. So I can't decide. I know people are probably throwing a hissy fit saying, you know, like, you cannot beat the fucking shootout in Heat. But that scene in the town is really well done, and just really pulse-pounding, I guess the critics would say. So, best heist is a draw. Fuck you. I don't care.
Ooh, that's not good.
Alright. Next would be the better director.
Ooh.
Once again, it seems a little lopsided, but let me elaborate. Ben Affleck versus Michael Mann. Michael Mann in his fucking wheelhouse, if ever there was one.
Yeah.
Of course, you know, you got Affleck in his wheelhouse too. It's fucking Boston.
Exactly. Literally in his wheelhouse.
Charlestown. It's the same thing, basically. Yeah, before we go into that, I will say I was really happy, and most people were too. People thought it was kind of a dumb title, just The Town. Until you learn that that's the other name for Charlestown. That's what they call it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's not just, it takes place in a town. Let's call it The Town.
Sounds like a bad horror movie.
Yeah, a little bit. Okay, as I was saying, Affleck has yet to do bad as a director. And I don't think that's going to happen.
No, it won't.
Because, you know, let's face it, the Oscar he won for producing Argo might as well be a directing Oscar.
Yes, it was.
You know, that technicality, thanks to Ben Zeitlin. I didn't say that.
I did.
You know, and old people not being able to use electronic voting systems.
And whippersnappers.
You know. Regardless, Affleck is a great director.
Yes.
Which completely... You look at all the jokes people made about him long ago when he had all romantic comedies, and it's like... He is so saying fuck all of you with his career right now.
I've just been saying, just you wait. Affleck's going to show you guys something, and sure enough, he has in spades.
The Town is really well done. Like you could say the acting is on account of him. The great editing and pace is on account of him. The Town has a great pace.
Yes, very much so.
And just the whole way, like, I love the scene. There's a really well done scene. It's the death of Desmond, the thinner, the guy not slain, but the other guy.
Okay.
They're in that parking garage at the end when they're about to escape in the ambulance, and a bomb goes off that the SWAT team throws in, and it deafens them for a second. Like all you hear is like the high pitched noise of silence, and then you see Desmond get a headshot, and Desmond's headshot breaks the silence. Like, it's just like, you can't hear anything except for the high-pitched sound. And then just that sound of Desmond getting shot just breaks the silence and brings the whole movie, like, it snaps you back to reality. There's plenty of, just the heist scenes are expertly done. Like, you can tell, like... Michael Mann probably watches The Town and says... Wow, I probably should have made this movie.
Yeah.
However, you know, this Heat is what Michael Mann does.
Yeah.
Like, you look at The Dark Knight in The Town, of course, but there are so many LA-based movies that clearly take their vision from Heat. Like, he just gives you the feel, like... You know, like, when you're in a big... Like, I'm trying to think of an example. This was the same way in Collateral, too. In Miami Vice, to an extent. It's a man thing.
Literally. MANN, of course.
I've never been to L.A., but because I've seen Michael Mann's movies, I feel like I've been to L.A.
I can understand that.
Like there's this, and it's just the smallest things too. He just has such a way about that. The scene that always comes to mind for Collateral, for some reason, it's a couple scenes. It's some of the overhead shots of the taxi, you know, but the scene in Collateral when Ruffalo and Bruce McGill and Peter Berg are coming out of the parking garage and like on the roof and they're getting ready to leave.
Mm-hmm.
I can like feel the night wind in LA when I watch that scene.
Nice.
And there's so many of those scenes in Heat. Like, I just, you know, I don't know how, as somebody who wants to direct movies and hopefully will soon enough, I don't know how one accomplishes that. It just he just does it. And, you know, I don't know, but, you know, both of them. But, you know, no offense to Affleck, but I have to give it to Michael Mann. It's just like, it's like all the others. There's one movie that's running away with it, but every category, the other movie is so close. Yeah. So it's not, the scores aren't as much of a landslide as you think, just by looking at them. Is the thing here. Let's see. He's already officially won, but let's do the last category. The better written one. I've already mentioned it. I'll just finish it. I'll just finish the thought. The Town is a great adaptation. It changed a lot of things. Like, you know, it knew what to cut out to make the movie not feel as packed, and maybe not. If they kept that stuff in, you know, it still would have been a good story, but maybe as a movie, would have felt too packed. It worked great as a book. And the ending, I actually like the ending better. In the end of the book, Doug dies. He gets, when he and Fergie shoot each other, when the whole clip to your nuts thing isn't in the book at all. That's something that's theirs. But the thing is in the book, Fergie, he shoots and kills Fergie, but Fergie gets him in the throat instead of just like non-mortal places. And he manages to drag himself to Claire's house where Frawley is. And the book ends with him laying dead on her living room carpet with Frawley calling the cops. But I like that it was really skillful the way they didn't go for the happy ending, but they didn't have to make it as dark as the book did. We don't know if they end up together. She may tell him to go fuck himself. She may tell him to stick Florida up his ass. But, you know, that was really skillful the way they managed to... And the way they toned Jem down. Like, Jem is a very sympathetic character. But like I said, in the book, he was insane. Like I said, in the movie The Town, he's more like Chris or Sharito. In the book, he's Waingro. So, you know, but you cannot ignore, to further give Mann credit, here's the thing. The Town was really well written, was a great adaptation. You had all those characters that all come into one place, that all remain one story in one very skillfully, maddeningly brilliant told crime saga. This is really just about a cop and a rover, but they managed to do all of this and make it one story. Ben Affleck based his story off a book.
Yeah. And
he had a co-writer. And together they made this thing. Michael Mann did all this by himself. Michael Mann wrote this entire script alone, based off his own thing, based off his own TV movie. So, that is just magnificently impressive on his part. So, the Heat would take... Jesus!
No! He will take nothing except for Razzies.
Heat will take writing as well as the whole thing. But don't let the scores fool you. The Town is a magnificent movie. It's just when you break it down like this, Heat is Heat. There's a reason that Heat is a classic heist movie. It is the classic heist movie.
Mm-hmm.
And the town will have its reputation in time, but right now it's the movie that proved Ben Affleck wasn't a one-hit wonder with Gone Baby Gone.
No lie.
In fact, I would say critics' love for The Town is probably what amped them up for how much they loved Argo.
Yeah,
because they knew going into expected greatness.
And he delivered.
Thus, Argo won Best Picture.
Damn right it did.
And that sucks. If you followed the race back then, which I did, The Town was this close to getting a Best Picture nomination.
Yep.
I believe it was down to this and Winter's Bone. It was Winter's Bone and 127 Hours were either in 9th or 10th. I would say Winter's Bone was in the last place spot.
I would say so.
If Winter's Bone hadn't just barely made it, because it got an adapted screenplay nomination and 2 acting nominations, it would have been The Town. The Town was expected to get in for the longest time, and at the very last minute, it only scored Renner.
Yeah.
Not even getting adapted screenplay, which kind of blew.
They were definitely talking screenplay for the longest time.
But 2010 is a great year.
Yes.
2010 is a fantastic year. The Town is my number 3 of 2010, and 2010 is a magnificent year. I have it under The Social Network and Inception, and then The Town. So, that's great. Like I said, I wax poetic about Heat. Heat's not even the best movie of 1995. Seven is.
Yeah,
but,
very true.
you know, that just proves these movies managed to stand, you know, this test of time of being in such great years. So, yeah. So he did not, despite the scores, he did not run away with this.
No.
Really. I mean, well...
Yes, no. But no.
Okay. Regardless, I think this is the longest versus we've done yet.
It is.
It's because of the fucking Heat cast.
Yes.
Okay,
comma, and then Heat cast. Good job.
Yes. Okay, so, that's it for this one. So, I was asked, you know, which one I'm doing next week to kind of give a clue. I don't even know. I have no idea.
But we will have a clue before Thursday, so if you guys, the girls out there, watch the Impact video on Thursday, I will give you another cryptic clue to try to determine what versus is going to be next week.